The next bill under consideration is number 54 on the general orders calendar, Senate File 2525. Senator Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today I'm presenting Senate File 2525. It provides labeling requirements for nonwoven disposable products. Nonwoven products are unique, they're high-tech, engineered fabrics that are made from fibers which are used across a wide range of applications and products. They're personal care nonwovens. They include items like moist towelettes and baby wipes. These products, they're effective, they're clean, they're easy to use. However, how and where they are used can encourage flushing as a means for disposal, which in certain situations is not the appropriate thing to do. Interest in this topic has grown as the number of personal hygiene and cleansing products have been introduced to the market which either incorrectly claim to be flushable or which consumers think are flushable. If the nonwoven product does not break down, they clog homeowner and municipal sewer pipes, they put stress on community wastewater collection and treatment equipment, and cause cities to spend thousands on premature equipment repair and replacement. The Minnesota Pollution Control Agency held water infrastructure listening sessions.
Excuse me, Senator Jensen, Senator Hand.
Mr. President, just a point of order or information.
State your point of information.
Mr. President, I got some information that Senator Fischbach had provided to the body. Thank you, Senator Fischbach. Apparently, this is an orphan bill. And I was under the impression that we were not taking up orphan bills on the floor. Maybe Senator Fischbach's information is not correct, but it looks like it's pretty clear that it isn't. So I'm just questioning why we are taking up a bill that has got no future.
Mr. President?
Senator Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. President. My job as senator is to introduce bills, to carry the bills through the committee process, to ensure that the committee process takes place, and that it gets to the floor of the Senate. It's on general orders in the Senate. I don't think we have to rely on what's happening in other bodies in order to have a bill heard on the floor of the Senate. That's my job, that's my motive, is to make sure that this bill moves through the process as it's intended to do in the Senate. So this bill is being prepared and presented to you today because it's on general orders in the Senate, and I would not guess to why or what other motive someone else would have whether to put it on the schedule or not, Mr. President.
Well, thank you. And to the body and to Senator Hand, I have got notice that this is in the Finance Committee in the House. Just for the point of information, just to answer your point of information. Senator Hand.
And Mr. President, thank you. And thank you, Senator Jensen. And I certainly am not disagreeing with your point that you have every right to bring a bill to the floor, even if it isn't going anywhere in the other body. I'm just remembering that the majority leader said that the Republican bills on general orders were not moving anywhere because they didn't have companions in the other body. So I just thought there, out of fairness, that we ought to be treating all members with equal concern and allowing all members to participate in the process regardless of what the other body was doing. So I think, Senator Jensen, your point is well taken. Apparently it doesn't apply to the minority.
Senator Sharon.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I was listening to the comments about not applying equivalently. I thought I heard you say that this language was in the House's omnibus bill. Would you repeat that again?
Senator Sharon, we did. It is in the House Finance Committee is the information that I received. I'm getting more information that says it's in the Environment and Natural Resources Finance Committee. That was the information that I have. Senator Fischbach.
Mr. Chair, or Mr. President, excuse me, it was introduced and referred to the Environment and Natural Resources Policy and Finance Committee in the House. That does not mean it is contained in a bill. And I think the point here is that there is not a companion. There is a companion in the House, but it is not moving.
Mr.
And
President,
there is no possibility of this
Mr. President,
going anywhere.
Point of order.
Point of order. Senator Jensen, state your point of order.
Is there a point of order that the President is being asked to make a ruling on? What is it? And has it been
Mr. President.
referenced in point of order.
Mr. President.
Senator Hand, 1 second. No, Senator Jensen, to answer your question, no, we were just trying to make sure we were kind of tracking the other bills, but there has not been a point of order. Senator Hand.
Mr. President, and I thought I was raising a point of information and trying to clarify for the body the operative rules we were working with, which was that we would take up bills that had companions that were moving in the other body, which is the reason the majority leader gave to me in questioning on the floor about why Republican bills on general orders were not being taken up on special orders, and that was the reason. And Senator Jensen, I agree with you that as a senator, we all should have the opportunity to take up bills and have them heard and use the process, but it was being denied to minority, and the reason given was that they were orphan bills, and what that meant is that there are bills in the House that are not moving, are not going anywhere. And so all I'm pointing out is that apparently it's okay to do this as long as they're majority bills. But for the minority, we don't have the same consideration, Senator Jensen, that you have, that our senators are not allowed to pursue the process in the way that you are. That is the point of information that I am raising.
Is there any more discussion on the Jensen bill? Senate File 2525. Senator Kiffmeyer.
Would Senator Jensen yield for a question?
She will yield.
Thank you, Madam President. So, Senator Jensen, could you give me information on the other states that have passed this kind of legislation or had this kind of policy in place? What other states would have this?
Senator Jensen.
Madam President and Senator Kiffmeyer, I am unaware of any other state that has this type of language in policy at this point. So if I could, Madam President, I would like to continue with my presentation of the bill.
Senator Jensen, and then we'll take questions.
Thank you, Madam President. So the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency held water infrastructure listening sessions. Many cities requested an actual ban on the sale of these disposable products due to the cost of the problem. This bill is not asking for that, but it takes an important step for our communities. And I will refer you to the handout that you should have received, listed 2016 on the top. It was put together by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and it lists the cities that have been impacted by wipes that have been flushed and the ability for what the cities have to do in order to deal with that particular situation when it happens. And you can see in the pictures and on the second page in particular what our cities are dealing with when this is getting into our sewer pipes, and our septic systems. Several of the towns listed, you can take a look, and you also should have a map at your desk. The cities reporting problems with wipes. There is a map with 83 cities that have reported issues and problems in regards to this, and you can take a look and see which cities are on that map. The thing I would like to point out is that it's across the state. This is happening in cities of all kinds of populations. It's not necessarily a reflection of their current system and how big it is. It's not based on population. It's widespread and it's real. No. So the nonwoven industry has recognized that these issues need to be addressed. The Association of the Nonwoven Fabrics Industry represents a very vast majority of nonwoven supplies in North America, and they published their first guidelines for flushability in 2008. So this is an ongoing problem that they've been working on as an industry since 2008. They state in their most recent edition, their words are, "Together our aim is to reduce the amount of non-flushable material in the wastewater stream. Therefore, it is important that these products that are likely to be flushed, even though they're not designed to be, and products which do not meet our guidelines are labeled, do not flush. This is why we developed a voluntary code of practice, which includes a dedicated symbol for companies to use on product packaging. Clear communication on that packaging will help to educate consumers on the proper disposal route for products and prevent costly problems at home and at wastewater treatment facilities. They understand and have been working towards a system because they know and acknowledge that this is a problem. Educating the consumer is something that they have been working on. The label is part of the education process, and that's why we're asking for that in this bill. And my intention was to make sure that we acknowledge the industry's work in this area. And the bill was changed in the Commerce Committee to accommodate their work and how they have been working to include their symbol. And so we included that. There are great concerns from people regarding the policies that they came up with. If you look at the letter that you should also have on your desk from the National Association of Clean Water Agencies, in the middle paragraph, it talks about in 2013 when that code of the process that they came up with, considering input from wastewater utility professionals was not included, despite the communicating its concerns prior to its publication. The tests do not replicate the conditions found in most sewer systems, and therefore not an accurate predictor of whether wipe is safe to flush. So the state's interest and the MPCA's interest is to make sure that the testing that they have included in their guidelines, their code of practice, actually includes input from the wastewater treatment facilities and the organizations that have to deal with the product once it reaches the wastewater system. The main problem is that the code of practice is voluntary. The state of Minnesota wants to make it mandatory. This language in this bill makes sense. If the product is flushable, it should be labeled that way. If it's not flushable, it should be labeled that way as well. This is common sense. There are a couple sections in the bill that you should be aware of. The prohibition is, and what it states is, no non-woven disposable product for sale in the state may be advertised, packaged, or labeled as flushable, septic safe, or sewer safe, unless it is. We also added a penalty, which is the same language. This came in the Judiciary Committee. Language that's the same as the requirement for plastic bags. It's a civil penalty, $100 for every prepackaged saleable unit, for a maximum of $5,000. The Attorney General may bring in an action on behalf of the state, and then we do add in some exceptions. This does not apply to advertisers, wholesalers, or retailers that distribute or sell. And if a manufacturer in the possession, if you have had made some of these, we give a time frame for them to get rid of the current stock, January 1st, 2018. With that, I'll stand for questions.
Question, Senator Brown.
Thank you, Madam President. I wish to ask the author a question.
She will yield. Senator Brown.
Thank you. Senator Jensen, could you explain the discrepancies in this handout that you have with the map of Minnesota, its cities reporting problems with wipes? You have number 67 listed as Royalton. Royalton is not in Roseau County. Number 62 you have listed as Rice. Rice is not in Clearwater County. Number 77 you have listed as Walker. Walker is not in Mille Lacs County. Number 63 you have listed as Robbinsdale. Robbinsdale is not in Benton County. Number 69 you have listed as Silver Bay. Silver Bay is not in Sherburne County. Can you explain the discrepancies on this map? I'm just trying to understand, Senator Jensen, which of my cities are actually reporting problems with the wipes.
Senator Jensen.
Madam President and Senator Brown, I'm sorry for the confusion on the front of the map. The cities that are listed and numbered on the back are the cities that have reported the issue. So you can go by the listing on the back of the page.
Senator Weber.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to comment on this bill. Having 16 years of local government experience, I am typically very empathetic towards city issues. And certainly I have had some contact from cities as it relates to this particular issue. I think it is important to note, however, Madam President, is what it will actually be the net effect of this bill if we pass it. And the reality of it is that there have been studies of these blockages that have happened in some communities. Now, quite frankly, Madam President, that is not a job that I would apply for, but the reality of it is these blockages have been analyzed. And at the end of the day, the flushable wipes are actually only 8% of that blockage, and the question then becomes, would they even be that high a percentage if there weren't other issues involved? And the reality of it is, Madam President, that 47% of those blockages have been determined to be basic items like paper towels, napkins, other tissue paper that, quite frankly, we're all told we're not supposed to flush in the first place. Another 32% of that breakdown actually is of non-flushable wipes, wipes that generally have noted on their packages that they are not to be flushed. So the reality of it is, it isn't as much of a problem with the industry as it is much with problem of people not paying attention to the directions and the common sense instructions. Quite frankly, that's we were told as kids by our parents when we were growing up. And so at the end of the day, the reality of it is, what is this bill going to do? The industry is already making changes in terms of their labeling, increasing that the notice that's there, the image that is there, and that, quite frankly, they're working towards that end. And I would say today, Madam President, at the end of the day, this bill isn't going to accomplish anything, particularly in light of the fact that there is no moving legislation in the other body. And so I think, quite frankly, Madam President, we should really double our efforts today to moving blockages from those areas that would be meaningful. And that is, for example, a transportation bill, rather than creating another clog in the pipeline to nowhere. Thank you very much, Madam President.
I have Senator Marty, then Senator Benson.
Madam President, this bill is not onerous, it's not burdensome. The only thing we're asking for is truth in advertising here. We didn't have this problem a number of years ago until some companies started marketing some of these non-woven wipes as flushable, and people started having problems with the plumbing systems, not only in their own homes, but in communities. And I think the thing you can take from this map that Senator Jensen handed out is how many communities are having serious, expensive problems with this. Talking about buying very expensive grinders for this, talk about how often people have to clean out the systems. And this could be solved by one simple step, and that is truth in advertising. And that's all Senator Jensen's bill would do. And this isn't I don't think this is a partisan thing. Former House Speaker Marty Seifert was telling me that a lot of the rural communities are getting to the point now where they're going to just simply try and pass product bans as individual cities. I think the manufacturers, if they want to avoid people banning their products, they ought to just start honest advertising and not trying to suggest, oh, some of these are okay to flush and some aren't. And, you know, if we just have a simple thing, you don't flush these things down the toilet, you'll not have a problem. And all we're asking the industry to do is have honest advertising of this. It's a simple bill, and if this doesn't happen, we're going to have the communities around the state and around the country, I think, are going to start banning these wipes, period. And I don't think we need to do that if they'll just be honest in their labeling. I urge your support for this, and yeah, the fact that the House is not taking up this bill yet. They still have some chances to do so, and I always thought we were supposed to be particularly concerned about orphans and widows, and if this is an orphan bill, it deserves special consideration.
Senator Benson.
Thank you, Madam President. And I did distribute some of the work that the industry is doing. But to Senator Marty's point that if we don't do something, we're going to end up with, ongoing problems and communities are going to ban these. The biggest problem is that users, moms and dads who clean their babies' bottoms, throw their diaper wipes into the toilet, which ends up in the sewer system. They're already labeled as not flushable. When our septic system is maintained, they tell us don't even put in Kleenexes. It's about consumer behavior. And so we need to do more education. That's very possible. But I don't think this bill is going to change people's behavior because problematic wipes, tissues, et cetera, are already labeled, and people are ignoring that labeling. This is about what people do in their home. The industry is moving towards more comprehensive labeling, more clear labeling, but until people stop throwing Kleenexes and paper towels and whatever else it is they feel like, little kids just throwing socks in the toilet and flushing them causes this problem. So there are a lot of things we can't solve with this bill, and so I'll be voting no.
Senator Bonoff.
Thank you, Madam President. I generally don't support bills that direct manufacturers with regard to how to label their products, because I understand, having worked in a manufacturing company, I worked for Tonka Toys, that they do national distribution, all the manufacturers, and so it's very difficult when states attempt to direct manufacturers of what to put on their packaging. In this case, I'm going to make an exception for that, because when we got together with the City of Minnetonka in January to review their legislative priorities, and they actually told us that this was one of their top legislative priorities this session because it was costing the city thousands and thousands of dollars. And more importantly than just that, they talked about what happens when the sewer actually backs up into the homeowners' basements and can, wreak such havoc in somebody's home. And so I know one of the city personnel from Minnetonka is quoted in Senator Jensen's handout. And so I told the Minnetonka folks that in this particular case, if we sent this strong message to the industry, that then perhaps we could impact a national change in product packaging and the words that they use, because those words do matter. So sometimes the work we do here isn't glamorous, and this is a case in point, but makes a difference.
Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Madam President. Well, I rise to speak in favor of Senate File 2525. Members, at first when I saw this bill, I too was skeptical and was not thinking that I would support it. I was totally unaware until I received letters from my district, both from the treatment plant, the sewer system. And basically, just in the city of Rochester alone, $44,000 annually at the water reclamation plant dealing with rag issues. Last year alone, 566 man-hours were spent dealing with disposable wipe issues at the Rochester water reclamation plant. They do cause serious issues which can result in those sanitary sewer overflows. And members, I'm a fan of truth in advertising, and all this bill does is simply state for something to be listed as flushable, it has to meet certain standards. And while we're not going to solve every problem, there's nothing that is a silver bullet, but this is a common sense proposal that provides accurate information for consumers. So it's a step in the right direction. It's not everything that we need, but it's a step in the right direction to make sure that consumers know that when something is flushable or not. And I think in this place, particularly at this time, we have to get over this notion of being all or nothing. Sometimes we just need to take a small step in the right direction, and that's what this bill does.
Senator Jensen.
Madam President, I impose a call of the Senate.
Senate is under call. Senator Jensen.
I needed to say for the balance of the proceeding of this bill.
Okay.
I move that further proceedings under the roll call be dispensed with and the Sergeant at Arms be instructed to bring in the absent members.
On that motion, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion prevails. The Sergeant will bring in the absent members. Continued discussion on Senate File 2525. Is there any more discussion? Secretary will give Senate File 2525 its third reading.
Senate File Number 2525, a bill for an act relating to environment, providing for labeling of certain non-woven disposable products.
Senator Han.
Thank you, Madam President. And members, I'm not going to recommend how anybody might want to vote. I see that Senator Benson has provided us with a flow chart that shows flushability guidelines on this important issue that we're taking up. And I know it's a topic that needs attention, and I certainly respect any member bringing any bill they wish to the floor. I wish that consideration would be given to all members, not just the members of the majority party. But beyond that, members, it is Thursday. We have not come here. We have not done the work that we came here to do. We do not have a tax bill. We do not have a transportation bill. There's only been one vote on transportation in this body this year, and that was the vote that the Republicans put up on an amendment to spend $463 million of the surplus on transportation, road and bridge infrastructure, and that was voted down by the Democrat majority. That's the only vote we've had this year on transportation. So I'm glad that here on Thursday, when we're due to adjourn on Monday, I'm glad we're taking up these important bills that we need to take up, and we're going to have this vote on flushability and on wipes and these other things that clog up the system. But as Senator Weber has pointed out, the thing that has been orphaned in this process is a transportation bill. We need to get that done. I hope we can return and bring our attention to the things that need to get done for the state of Minnesota.
Is there any more discussion on Senate Bill 2525? Secretary will take the roll. All members having voted. Secretary will close the roll. There being 49 ayes and 9 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to.